The champagne glass trembled in my hand as I looked around the crowded bistro table, surrounded by our closest friends and family. This was it, the moment I'd finally clear the air and get the attention I deserved from my husband. "Everyone, I have something to share," I announced, my voice cutting through the New Year's Eve chatter. The table fell silent. Marcus looked up from his phone, his dark eyes meeting mine with mild curiosity. He had no idea what was coming. "I need to be honest about something that's been weighing on me," I continued, feeling empowered by my own transparency. "Julian has been, well, let's just say he's been very attentive to me lately, more attentive than some people in my life." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Julian's fork clattered against his plate. His wife Leah's face went pale. Marcus's mother Ruth set down her wine glass with deliberate precision. "Vesperine, what exactly are you saying?" Leah's voice was barely above a whisper. I straightened my shoulders, feeling justified in my honesty. "I'm saying that Julian has been flirting with me at work, constantly. And honestly, it's been nice to feel wanted by someone who actually pays attention to me." Marcus's expression didn't change. He simply stared at me, processing my words with that infuriating calm of his. This wasn't the reaction I'd expected. Where was the jealousy? The passion? The fight for me? "Are you serious right now?" Ruth's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You're announcing this at dinner, in front of everyone?" "I believe in honesty," I replied, my chin raised defiantly. "I'm tired of pretending everything is perfect when it's not. Marcus, you've been so distant lately, so focused on work and your computer projects. Julian makes me feel appreciated." Julian shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Vesperine, I think you're misreading—" "Don't you dare!" Leah snapped at her husband, her voice shaking. "Don't you dare try to minimize this." Marcus finally spoke, his voice eerily calm. "How long has this been going on?" "A few months," I admitted, feeling a strange mix of relief and anticipation. "Nothing physical, of course, but the emotional connection, it's been everything I've been missing at home." Faye, my coworker and friend, looked mortified. "Vesperine, maybe this isn't the time or place." "When is the right time?" I interrupted. "When should I address the fact that my husband barely notices me anymore? That I have to seek validation from other men just to feel alive?" The table erupted in uncomfortable murmurs. Other diners were starting to stare. Marcus remained perfectly still, his hands folded on the table. "You're humiliating yourself," Ruth said quietly. "And more importantly, you're humiliating my son." "I'm being honest," I protested. "Isn't that what marriage is supposed to be about? Truth?" Marcus stood up slowly, reaching for his wallet. "Check, please," he said to the passing waiter, his voice steady and polite. "Marcus, don't you have anything to say?" I demanded. "Aren't you going to fight for me? Show some emotion?" He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw something flicker in his eyes. But it wasn't jealousy or passion. It was something else entirely, something that made my stomach clench. "I think you've said enough for both of us tonight," he replied, placing cash on the table. "Happy New Year, everyone." He walked out without another word, leaving me sitting there with a table full of shocked faces. The silence was deafening. "Well," I said with a forced laugh, trying to regain control of the situation. "I guess honesty isn't always appreciated." But as I looked around at the horrified expressions of our friends and family, I felt the first crack in my confidence. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Marcus was supposed to fight for me, to show me he cared. Instead, he'd simply left. Julian avoided my eyes, whispering urgently to his furious wife. Ruth gathered her purse with sharp, angry movements. Faye looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "I should go," Leah said, standing abruptly. "Julian, we're leaving, now." "Leah, please," Julian started. "Now," she repeated, her voice deadly quiet. They left without saying goodbye to anyone. Ruth followed shortly after, pausing only to lean down and whisper in my ear, "You have no idea what you've just done to yourself." Faye stayed a few more minutes, trying to salvage the evening, but the damage was done. The celebration was over, and I was left sitting in the wreckage of what should have been my moment of truth and triumph. As I drove home alone, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, I told myself that Marcus would come around. He'd realize that my honesty was a gift, a chance for us to rebuild our marriage on a foundation of truth. He'd see that I was brave enough to confront our problems head-on. But when I pulled into our driveway and saw that his car wasn't there, a cold fear settled in my chest. The house was dark, silent, and suddenly felt much larger than before. I woke up alone on New Year's Day, the empty space beside me in bed serving as a stark reminder of the previous night's events. Marcus's pillow was undisturbed, his side of the bed cold. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. Nothing. Padding downstairs in my robe, I found evidence of his return. His keys on the kitchen counter, his coat hanging in the closet. But where was he? "Daddy's in the guest room," came a small voice behind me. I turned to see Theo, our 7-year-old son, standing in his pajamas with his favorite stuffed elephant tucked under his arm. "He said he didn't want to wake you." My heart sank. "Did he seem upset, sweetheart?" Theo shrugged, but his eyes held a worry that no child should have to carry. "He made pancakes. They're in the fridge." I found the plate of perfectly round pancakes, covered with plastic wrap, alongside a note. "For Theo. Syrup in the cabinet." Not a word for me. When Marcus emerged from the guest room an hour later, showered and dressed for the day, he greeted Theo with genuine warmth and me with polite indifference. "We need to talk," I said, cornering him in the kitchen, while Theo watched cartoons in the living room. "Do we?" Marcus poured himself coffee, not offering me any. "I thought you said everything you needed to say last night." "That's not fair. I was trying to be honest with you, to open up about what I've been feeling." He leaned against the counter, studying me with those calm, analytical eyes that had once made me feel safe but now made me feel exposed. "You announced to our friends and family that you've been having an emotional affair with my former friend. At a public dinner. On New Year's Eve. What exactly did you expect my reaction to be?" "I expected you to care." The words burst out of me louder than intended. "I expected you to show some emotion, some jealousy, some indication that losing me would matter to you." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, sipping his coffee. "And now that you've gotten what you wanted, a reaction from me, what's your next move?" Something in his tone made me uneasy. This wasn't the Marcus I knew, the one who would get flustered during arguments, who would raise his voice and storm off. This version was different. Controlled. Almost clinical. "I want us to work through this," I said, softening my approach. "I want us to go to counseling, to figure out how to reconnect. Last night was a wake-up call for both of us." "Was it?" He set down his mug. "What exactly did it wake you up to?" I faltered. That we have problems, that we need to communicate better." Interesting, because what it woke me up to was that my wife has been emotionally unfaithful for months, announced it publicly to humiliate me, and now wants to blame me for driving her to it. I never said it was your fault." "Didn't you?" He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. Quote, "Marcus, you've been so distant lately, so focused on work and your computer projects. Julian makes me feel appreciated." End quote. That sounds like blame to me. I stared at him. "You recorded our conversation." "I didn't need to. Faye texted me this morning. Apparently, she's been getting calls from people who were there, asking if our marriage is okay. The story's making rounds." My face burned. "So what? People gossip. It'll blow over." "Will it?" Marcus pocketed his phone. "Julian's your coworker. Leah's in our friend group. My mother was there. Theo's friend's parents were there. This isn't going to just disappear, Vesperine." The way he said my name, flat, emotionless, sent a chill through me. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that actions have consequences. You made a choice last night, and now we all have to live with it." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Marcus went to answer it, returning with his mother. Ruth looked at me with barely concealed disgust. "Vesperine," she said curtly, not bothering with pleasantries. "I came to check on my son and grandson." "They're fine," I replied, bristling at her tone. "Are they?" Ruth sat down at the kitchen table, making herself comfortable. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like this family is falling apart." "Ruth, please don't." "Don't what? Don't point out that you humiliated my son in front of everyone we know. Don't mention that you've been carrying on with another man while Marcus works 60 hours a week to support this family." "It wasn't an affair," I protested. "It was just conversation, just someone paying attention to me when my own husband couldn't be bothered." Ruth's laugh was harsh. "Oh, sweetheart, you really don't understand, do you?" "Understand what?" She looked at Marcus, who was leaning against the door frame with his arms crossed. "Should I tell her, or will you?" "Tell me what?" I demanded. Marcus straightened. "That patient and quiet doesn't mean weak. That when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them. That humiliating me publicly was the last mistake you'll make in this marriage." The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of cartoons from the living room. Ruth nodded approvingly at her son's words. "What does that mean?" I whispered. "It means," Marcus said, his voice still eerily calm, "that you got your wish. You wanted a reaction from me. You wanted consequences. You wanted honesty. Well, congratulations. You're about to get all three." He walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with Ruth, who was studying me like I was a particularly unpleasant insect. "You know," she said conversationally, "I never liked you much, but I respected the fact that you made Marcus happy. Past tense, obviously." "He's just upset," I said weakly. "He'll calm down." Ruth stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Oh, honey, you really don't know my son at all, do you? Marcus doesn't get mad. He gets even, and he's very, very good at it." After she left, I found myself alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of our normal life. Theo's drawings on the refrigerator, Marcus's coffee mug in the sink, the morning newspaper still folded on the counter. Everything looked the same, but something fundamental had shifted. That evening, Marcus moved his things into the guest room permanently. When I tried to talk to him about it, he simply said, "I think separate spaces would be best for now." He was polite, cordial even. He helped Theo with his homework, made dinner, cleaned up afterward. But he didn't speak to me unless absolutely necessary, and when he did, it was with the distant courtesy he might show a stranger. It was somehow worse than if he'd screamed at me. The first week back at work after New Year's was a nightmare. I could feel the whispers following me through the office corridors, the way conversation stopped when I entered a room. Faye, who usually grabbed coffee with me every morning, suddenly had meetings that ran long. "People are talking," she finally admitted when I cornered her in the supply closet, "about what happened at dinner." "Let them talk," I said, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. "It's none of their business." "Vesperine, you made it their business when you announced it in front of everyone." Faye's voice was gentle but firm. "And Julian, he's been telling people that you misinterpreted his friendliness, that he was just being nice to a colleague." My blood boiled. "He's lying. He was flirting with me constantly. The compliments, the lingering looks, the way he'd find excuses to touch my arm or shoulder." "Maybe he was," Faye said carefully. "But now his wife knows and she's furious. She called me yesterday, asking if I knew how long you'd been pursuing her husband." "Pursuing him?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "He pursued me." "That's not how Julian's telling it. And honestly, Vesperine, even if he was flirting, why did you have to announce it like that? Why humiliate Marcus in front of everyone?" I stared at my friend, seeing doubt and disappointment in her eyes. "I thought you'd understand. You've complained about David not paying attention to you. That's completely different, and you know it." Faye backed away from me. I complained to you privately. I don't announce to a dinner party that I'm emotionally cheating on my husband. After she left, I sat in the supply closet for 10 more minutes, trying to process how quickly my support system was crumbling. When I finally emerged, I nearly collided with Julian. "We need to talk," I said, grabbing his arm. He looked around nervously, then pulled me into an empty conference room. "Vesperine, this has gotten way out of hand. You're telling people I pursued you, that I misunderstood your intentions?" Julian ran his hands through his hair, avoiding my eyes. "Look, maybe I was a little too friendly. But I never meant for it to go this far. I certainly never expected you to announce it to everyone." "So you're just going to throw me under the bus to save your marriage?" "My marriage?" Julian's voice rose slightly. "Leah hasn't spoken to me in a week. She's staying at her sister's house. She's talking about separation. So, no, I'm not trying to save my marriage. I'm trying to salvage what's left of my life." I felt a cold realization wash over me. "You're blaming me for everything. Aren't you the one who made the announcement? Aren't you the one who decided to air our business in public?" Julian's friendly mask was completely gone now, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "I was being nice to a coworker. You turned it into something it wasn't. That's not true, and you know it." "Do I? Because looking back, I think you were reading way too much into normal workplace interactions. And now both our marriages are falling apart because you couldn't keep your mouth shut." He left me standing in the conference room, shaking with rage and humiliation. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Julian was supposed to stand by me, to admit that there had been something real between us. Instead, he was rewriting history, to make me look like a delusional woman who'd imagined the whole thing. When I got home that evening, I found Marcus in his study, a room that used to be our shared home office, but had apparently become his private domain. The door was closed, but I could hear him typing. I knocked. "Can we talk?" "I'm busy," came his muffled reply. "It's important." A pause, then the sound of his chair rolling back. He opened the door but didn't invite me in. Behind him, I could see his desk covered with papers, file folders, and his laptop displaying what looked like spreadsheets. "What's so important?" he asked. "Julian's telling people that I imagined everything, that I pursued him and misunderstood his friendliness." Marcus nodded slowly. And? That's not what happened. He was flirting with me constantly. He made me feel special, wanted... "So you've said, multiple times." His calm response deflated my anger. "Don't you care that he's making me look like some pathetic woman who fantasized about an affair that never existed? Is that what happened? Did you fantasize about an affair?" I stared at him. "No, it was real. The connection between us was real. But nothing physical happened." "No, but..." And now he's denying there was anything inappropriate. "Yes, but you have to believe me." "Do I?" Marcus tilted his head slightly, studying me. "Because from where I'm standing, it doesn't really matter whether Julian was flirting with you or you imagined it. What matters is that you announced to our friends and family that you were emotionally unfaithful to me. That's not in dispute." I felt the ground shifting under my feet. "So you're not going to defend me? You're just going to let people think I'm crazy?" "I'm not going to defend or attack anyone," Marcus said evenly. "I'm going to focus on what's best for Theo and myself moving forward." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done with this conversation." He started to close the door, then paused. "Oh, and Vesperine, you might want to prepare yourself for some changes around here. I've been doing a lot of thinking this week." The door clicked shut, leaving me standing in the hallway with a growing sense of dread. Through the closed door, I could hear him resume typing, the sound steady and purposeful. That night, I tried calling Leah, hoping to repair at least one of my damaged relationships. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later with the same result. Finally, I sent a text. "Leah, please call me. I know you're angry, but we need to talk about what really happened." Her response came 20 minutes later. What really happened is that you announced you were having an emotional affair with my husband at a public dinner. There's nothing else to discuss." I stared at the message, feeling more isolated than ever. Everyone was turning against me, rewriting the narrative to make me the villain. But I knew the truth. Julian had been interested in me. He had made me feel special. And Marcus had been neglecting me for months. The problem was, I seemed to be the only one who remembered it that way. Over the next few days, the isolation deepened. Colleagues avoided me at work. Friends stopped returning my calls. Even Theo seemed more distant, spending most of his time with Marcus or in his room. But it was Marcus's behavior that worried me most. He was still polite, still civil, but there was something different about him. He spent hours in his study with the door locked. He took phone calls in private, stepping outside or into another room when his phone rang. And I'd started noticing things missing from the house, small things, personal items that belonged to him. When I asked him about it, he just said he was organizing. "Organizing for what?" I pressed. "For the future," he replied, and something in his tone made me decide not to push further. But late at night, lying alone in our king-size bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus wasn't just organizing his belongings. He was organizing something much bigger, and I was going to be on the outside of whatever he was planning. 2 weeks after the disastrous New Year's dinner, I was desperately trying to salvage what remained of my social connections. The annual family day at Theo's school seemed like the perfect opportunity to show everyone that Marcus and I were working through our problems like mature adults. "We should present a united front," I told Marcus over breakfast. "Show people that we're stronger than gossip and speculation." Marcus looked up from his tablet, where he'd been reading the news. "Present a united front for what?" "For our marriage, for our family. People are watching us, waiting to see if we're going to fall apart." "Are we?" he asked mildly. The question caught me off guard. "Are we what?" "Going to fall apart." I stared at him, searching his face for any hint of emotion. "That's up to us, isn't it? That's why I think we should go to the school event together, show everyone that we're committed to working through this." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Fine, we'll go together." His agreement should have made me happy, but something about his tone felt ominous. Still, I clung to the hope that public appearances might help us remember how to be a couple again. Family Day was held in the school gymnasium, decorated with children's artwork and filled with the cheerful chaos of dozens of families. Theo ran ahead of us, eager to show off his science project, while Marcus and I walked side by side in what I hoped looked like companionable silence. "Vesperine, Marcus," called out Janet Morrison, another parent from Theo's class. "How are you two doing?" The question felt loaded, and I could see the curiosity in her eyes. News of our dinner disaster had clearly spread beyond our immediate circle. "We're doing great," I said brightly, slipping my arm through Marcus's, "just taking things one day at a time." Marcus didn't pull away, but his arm remained rigid under my touch. "Janet," he said politely, "how's the new job going?" As Janet launched into a story about her recent career change, I felt a flicker of hope. We could do this. We could present the image of a couple working through their problems with dignity and grace. But then I saw Julian and Leah across the gymnasium. They were standing with their daughter Emma, looking like the perfect family unit. Julian had his arm around Leah's waist, and she was smiling up at him with what appeared to be genuine affection. Had they reconciled? Had he somehow convinced her that I'd imagined everything? "Excuse me," I said to Janet, leaving Marcus mid-conversation to walk across the room. "Leah," I called out as I approached. "Can we talk?" Leah's smile vanished. Julian's face went pale. "I don't think that's a good idea," Leah said coolly. "Please, just for a minute. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Leah interrupted, her voice low but fierce, "was me thinking you were my friend. A real friend wouldn't have been flirting with my husband for months and then announced it publicly to humiliate me." "That's not what happened," I protested. Julian, tell her. Tell her how you used to compliment me, how you'd find excuses to spend time with me. Vesperine, stop. Julian's voice was sharp. You're making this worse for everyone. I'm making it worse. You're the one who's been lying about what happened between us. Nothing happened between us, Julian snapped, his composure finally cracking. We worked together. We were friendly. You read way too much into normal workplace interactions, and now you're trying to destroy my marriage to justify your own guilty conscience. His words hit me like a physical blow. Around us, other parents were starting to stare. I could see phones coming out, people pretending to check messages while actually recording the drama unfolding in front of them. You're a liar, I said, my voice shaking. You know exactly what you were doing. You made me feel special. You made me think. I made you think what? Julian demanded. That I was going to leave my wife for you. That we were going to run away together. Vesperine, listen to yourself. You're a married woman with a child, and you're having a public meltdown because a coworker was nice to you. The gymnasium had gone quiet around us. Even the children seemed to sense the tension and had stopped their chatter. I could feel dozens of eyes on me, could practically hear the mental notes being taken for later gossip sessions. That's enough. Marcus's voice cut through the silence as he appeared beside me. Vesperine, we're leaving. No, I said, turning to him desperately. You have to tell them. You have to tell them that Julian was flirting with me, that this wasn't all in my head. Was he? Marcus asked quietly. The question stopped me cold. What? Was Julian flirting with you? Because I've been thinking about this a lot over the past few weeks, and I'm starting to wonder if it matters. I stared at my husband, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet once again. Of course it matters. If he was leading me on, then what? You were justified in being emotionally unfaithful. You were right to humiliate me in public. Marcus's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath it. Even if Julian was flirting with you, even if he was interested in you, you still made the choice to engage with it. You still made the choice to let it continue for months. You still made the choice to announce it to everyone we know. The truth of his words hit me like ice water. Around us, the crowd was listening with rapt attention. Julian and Leah had moved closer together, presenting a unified front against my accusations. I started, then stopped. What could I say? That I'd been lonely, that I'd been seeking attention, that I'd been trying to make Marcus jealous? All of it sounded pathetic in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the school gymnasium. We're leaving, Marcus said again, and this time his tone brooked no argument. Theo, come on, we're going home. The drive home was silent except for Theo's quiet questions from the back seat. Why was everyone staring at us? Why did you argue with Mr. Firth? Sometimes adults disagree about things, Marcus said calmly. It's not your fault, and it's not something you need to worry about. But when we got home, Theo disappeared into his room without his usual chatter about the day's events. I could hear him talking to someone on his tablet, probably his grandmother Ruth, who video called him most evenings. That was a disaster, I said to Marcus as we stood in our kitchen. Was it, or was it exactly what you wanted? I looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? You wanted attention, you wanted drama, you wanted people to notice you and talk about you. Marcus leaned against the counter, studying me with those analytical eyes. Congratulations. You got everything you asked for. That's not fair. Isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, you've gotten exactly what you set out to get. Everyone's talking about you. Everyone knows your name. You're the center of attention in every room you enter. His words stung because there was truth in them. I had wanted attention, had wanted to feel important and noticed, but not like this, not as the subject of gossip and speculation. I wanted you to notice me, I said quietly. I wanted my husband to care enough to fight for me. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, but somehow more final. I did notice you, Vesperine. I noticed everything, and now I'm done fighting. That night, He didn't even pretend we might reconcile. He went straight to the guest room after dinner, closing the door firmly behind him. I could hear him on the phone, speaking in low tones to someone I couldn't identify. When I pressed my ear to the door, trying to make out his words, all I could catch were fragments. Documentation, timeline, best interests of the child. A cold fear settled in my stomach as I realized that Marcus wasn't just organizing his belongings. He was organizing his exit strategy, and I was completely powerless to stop it. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the Family Day disaster. I was getting ready for work when Mrs. Conway from next door knocked on our front door. "This came to my house by mistake," she said, handing me a thick manila envelope addressed to me. "Looks important." I thanked her and closed the door, staring at the envelope. There was no return address, just my name typed on a white label. Inside, I could feel what seemed like multiple documents. "Marcus," I called out, but there was no answer. His car was gone from the driveway. He'd been leaving for work earlier and earlier each morning, often before Theo and I were even awake. I set the envelope on the kitchen counter and went about my morning routine, but it seemed to pull at my attention like a magnet. Something about it felt ominous, official. When I finally opened it during my lunch break at work, my hands were shaking. The first document was titled, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage." My name was listed as the respondent. Marcus was the petitioner. I stared at the papers, the words blurring together as my brain struggled to process what I was seeing. Irreconcilable differences, division of assets, custody arrangements. There were pages and pages of legal language, all of it pointing to one devastating conclusion. Marcus was divorcing me. But it was the attached documentation that truly took my breath away. There were printed screenshots of text messages I'd sent to Julian over the past several months, messages I'd forgotten about, casual flirtations that looked much worse when compiled together on official-looking pages. There were copies of our work schedules, showing the times Julian and I had taken breaks together. There were witness statements from coworkers who'd observed our interactions. And there was a timeline, a detailed, methodical timeline of my relationship with Julian, complete with dates, times, and specific incidents. It was thorough, professional, and utterly damning. At the bottom of the stack was a handwritten note. "You once told me truth fixes everything, so I'm giving you yours." I called Marcus immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again, then again. Finally, I left a message. "Marcus, we need to talk. Now. This is insane. You can't just call me back." He didn't. I left work early, claiming I was sick, and drove home in a daze. Marcus's car wasn't in the driveway, but when I went inside, I could tell he'd been there. Drawers in his dresser were empty. His toiletries were gone from our bathroom. The closet looked sparse, missing most of his clothes. In his study, the desk was clear, except for a single folder labeled Vesperine. Inside were copies of all the divorce papers, along with a note explaining that I had 30 days to respond and that I should retain legal counsel. I sank into his desk chair, surrounded by the evidence of his methodical dismantling of our life together. How long had he been planning this? How long had he been documenting everything, building his case while I thought he was just being distant? The front door opened, and I heard Theo's voice calling out, "Mom, Dad, I'm home." I quickly shoved the papers back into the folder and went to meet my son. He looked around the house with confusion. "Where's Dad? His car's not here." "He's working late," I said, the lie tasting bitter in my mouth. "Again, he's been working late every day this week." I knelt down to Theo's level, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something important. There are going to be some changes around here." Theo's eyes went wide with the kind of fear that only children can have when their world starts to shift. "What kind of changes?" "Daddy and we're having some problems. Adult problems. And we might need to live in different houses for a while. Like Tommy's parents, Theo asked quietly. Tommy was a classmate whose parents had divorced the previous year. Maybe, I said, hating myself for the pain I could see in his eyes. But no matter what happens, both Daddy and I love you very much. That will never change. Theo was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the serious concentration that children bring to life-altering news. Is it because of what happened at the dinner and at school? My heart broke a little more. Of course he'd picked up on the tension, the arguments, the way our social circle had imploded. Children always knew more than adults gave them credit for. It's complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes have consequences. What mistake did you make? The question was so innocent, so direct, that it took my breath away. How could I explain to my 7-year-old son that I'd been seeking attention from another man, that I'd humiliated his father in public, that I'd destroyed our family's reputation and social connections because I felt neglected? I hurt Daddy's feelings, I said finally. I made some bad choices, and now I have to face the consequences. That evening, after Theo went to bed, I tried calling Marcus again. This time, he answered. We need to talk, I said immediately. Do we? I think the papers are pretty self-explanatory. Marcus, please, don't do this. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. Vesperine, I tried to work through this. For 3 weeks, I gave you opportunities to apologize, to take responsibility, to show some remorse for what you'd done. Instead, you doubled down. You caused a scene at our son's school. You continued to blame everyone else for your choices. I was hurt. Julian was lying about what happened between us. And there it is again, Marcus said quietly. Even now, even with divorce papers in your hands, you're still blaming Julian, still refusing to take responsibility for your own actions. I was quiet, trying to find the right words to make him understand. What do you want me to say? I don't want you to say anything. It's too late for words. It's not too late. We have a son together. We have a life together. We had a life together. You ended it on New Year's Eve. The finality in his voice was terrifying. Marcus, please, I'm begging you, don't do this to our family. I'm not doing anything to our family. I'm protecting what's left of it. I'm protecting Theo from having to watch his parents destroy each other. And I'm protecting myself from further humiliation. I won't humiliate you anymore. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone that I was wrong. You think this is about public humiliation? Marcus's voice rose slightly, the first crack in his calm facade I'd heard in weeks. You think I care what Janet Morrison or the people at Theo's school think about me? Then what is this about? It's about trust. It's about respect. It's about the fact that you looked me in the eye for months while you were emotionally involved with another man. It's about the fact that when confronted with your choices, your first instinct was to blame me for driving you to it. I was crying now, ugly sobs that made it hard to speak. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I know I messed up, but people make mistakes. People work through things. Some mistakes can be worked through, Marcus said, his voice gentle now but still firm. This isn't one of them. You didn't just cheat on me, Vesperine. You humiliated me. You destroyed our social connections. You made our son a target for gossip at school. And you showed me exactly what you think of me and our marriage. That's not true, isn't it? Because when you announced your emotional affair to a table full of our friends and family, what you were really saying was that you valued the attention of another man more than you valued my dignity, more than you valued our son's stability, more than you valued our marriage. The truth of his words hit me like a physical blow. He was right. In my desperation for attention and validation, I had sacrificed everything that should have mattered most to me. The papers are filed, Marcus continued. I've retained counsel. I've documented everything. This isn't a negotiation, Vesperine. This is me informing you of what's going to happen next. What about Theo? What about him? I'm requesting joint custody with primary residence. You'll have him every other weekend, and 1 evening per week, assuming you can provide a stable environment. Assuming I can provide. Marcus, I'm his mother. And I'm his father. The father who didn't air our family's dirty laundry in public. The father who didn't cause scenes at his school events. The father who's been documenting every instance of your poor judgment over the past 3 weeks. A cold realization washed over me. You've been building a case against me. I've been protecting my son's interests. If you want to challenge the custody arrangement, that's your right. But I should warn you that I have a very thorough record of recent events. The line went quiet for a moment. I could hear him breathing, could picture him in some anonymous hotel room or temporary apartment, surrounded by the belongings he'd been systematically removing from our house. "Where are you staying?" I asked quietly. "That's not your concern anymore." "When will you tell Theo?" "I'll pick him up this weekend. We'll have a conversation about the new living arrangements." "Marcus, please." But the line was already dead. He'd hung up, leaving me alone in our empty house with a stack of legal papers and the devastating realization that my marriage was over. I'd gotten the attention I wanted. I'd gotten the reaction I'd been seeking. I'd gotten the drama and excitement that had been missing from my comfortable suburban life. And I'd lost everything that actually mattered in the process. 3 days later, the same courier returned, this time with a thin envelope and a small key. Inside was a notice. Marcus had opened a safety deposit box for safekeeping during dissolution. The note at the bottom made my knees fold. My engagement ring and wedding photos were inside, before he filed the final paperwork. At the bank, the box held exactly that: ring, album, gifts, and a manila envelope labeled, "For Theo when he's older." I opened it with shaking hands. Transcripts, commendations, performance reviews, character letters, proof of the man I'd underestimated. Then a letter to our son. The divorce wasn't Theo's fault. Love sometimes means letting go. Dad will always be Dad. I finally saw the scope. Marcus hadn't been preparing to argue. He'd been preparing to exit cleanly, quietly, and permanently. When I got home, Ruth was in my kitchen, helping Theo with homework. She didn't rage. She pitied. "He's done," she said, and then explained what done meant. New apartment, new school district, new banks, new doctors, every tie cut. She offered an envelope, relocation listings, job leads, and a cashier's check. A fresh start fund. If I fought, she warned, everything would become public, every message and witness. The fight drained out of me. At dinner, Theo asked if I would move away, like it was an adventure. That night, I signed every paper, realizing the cruelest revenge wasn't shouting. It was being erased with perfect paperwork.